Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tynemouth Circle. My name is John Gibson. I was here a little while back. We've got a very, very special guest for us tonight who's come up deliberately to talk to us, which is rather good. 457 appearances for Newcastle. That is absolutely fantastic. One goal, not so fantastic. But an epic goal, and obviously we'll get 20 minutes commentary on that shortly. Can you imagine somebody winning two top European trophies with clubs like Newcastle United and Nottingham Forest in terms of we're not habitual winners, are we, either club? But so it's quite a unique record. Put your hands together. You know the guy, of course, Frank Clark.
Here, John. And by the way, I got 2 goals.
Oh, yes, you did.
You forget about the one in the Texaco Cup.
Right.
Birmingham City.
Right.
It bounced 4 times before winning.
Well, that's better than the one Monk's got in the first cup final. That bounced 5 times, didn't it, before winning? But we'll talk about that special one that broke the ice later on. An obvious question, a difficult question maybe, Frank. You won the European First Cup with us, and then you went on to win the Champions League, which was then the European Cup, with Nottingham Forest. Where do you rate those 2 trophies in comparison?
Well, I mean, I've been asked that a lot, and it's really difficult. Because I was still at school, I was 18 years of age, and I was playing for Crook Town. And we won the FA Amateur Cup, and I played at Wembley in an Amateur Cup final, you know. And that was an incredible experience for me as a schoolboy, really, of 18 years of age. And then at Newcastle, we got promoted, and then we won the First Cup. We got to Forest, and we won the Championship, and then we won the European Cup. Very difficult to put one above the other, really.
Yes.
You really enjoy the one that happens as it happens.
But even though the Newcastle United trophy was obviously second in the pecking to the one at Forest, because the one at Forest the ultimate European trophy, because it's the first one and because you're from up here, it possibly still rates highly with you.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't the biggest European competition, but for Newcastle United, especially the way the thing happened as well, it was just like an incredible achievement, you know, and I thought I would never top that in my life.
Yeah.
Until Lord Westwood put me out. You know?
He's a nice guy. Did you a favour, mate? Did you a favour? But looking at the Newcastle one, let's start with Newcastle United because it's closest to home and it was the first one. First of all, we'll look at the actual run towards winning the cup. And I felt, as sort of on the outside looking in, that we were gloriously naive because we held no fear, but we didn't actually. We played Feyenoord first time out and didn't realise that Feyenoord had this pedigree they had, and we tonked them 4-0.
Well, yeah, I mean, people forget about Feyenoord. The season after, they won the Dutch League that year when we knocked them out, and the season after that, they won the European Cup. We didn't know anything about that. We obviously knew nothing about that. Naivety is a great word, John. I mean, I'm sure you all know the circumstances. You know, we finished 10th in the league the previous season, and by some miraculous conjunction of silly FA rules and Intercity's First Cup rules, we actually qualified for the competition.
Well, it was one city, one club.
Yeah.
So if you're from London, you couldn't be in if there was another London club in.
Absolutely. So I mean, we were absolutely hammered by the national press. The national press, football journalists anyway, said it'll be a disgrace, it'll shame the country and all that, they shouldn't be in it. So we just decided really as a group, without really talking about it, that we'd enjoy it and make the most of it, you know, get your passport out, maybe want to get 1 or 2 nice trips and see how it goes. And that's how we approach it. And I mean, Joe Hawley, great manager, great man manager, but not the greatest tactician in the world.
No.
I used to go on scouting trips to watch these teams before we played them. He'd come back and he'd say, well, he said, I was talking to a taxi driver and he told me this bloody right winger can't run. And that would be the extent of his kind of pre-match briefing, you know? And I mean, his half-time thing in the final, I'm sure you've probably all heard it before. We won the first leg 3-0 at home against the Hungarian team, Upesdoza. We go out there for the second leg, and at half-time we haven't had a kick. We've been outplayed, we're hanging on. If it hadn't been for Willie McFall, we'd have been more than 2-0 down. And we come in and it's really hot. It's like it's the middle of June by now, and it gets bloody hot in Budapest in June. And we come in the dressing room and we're all sat there, heads in our hands. And Joe comes in and says, "Come on, fellas, we've got nothing to worry about. All you got to do is get a goal." And Monk said, "Get a goal, we can't get a fucking kick." Funnily enough, we go out, and within a minute, Monk gets a goal. And what Joe was saying was absolutely right. You know, there's a way rules thing. We were 3-0 up from the first leg, so we get that one goal, that means they've got to score 5. And you could see that it just, it was like somebody pricked a balloon, you know, they just collapsed. And we went on and won the game easily. But that was how we looked at it. I mean, there was none of this rubbish of travelling out the night before the game and coming back straight after the game. We played the games on a Wednesday. It was always on a Wednesday then. We would go out on the Sunday, and we didn't come back till Thursday afternoon. Which I've got to tell you, it was great for the press.
I loved it.
Well, I'm sure they did that a hell of a time. And we did our best within, you know, behaving ourselves, but to enjoy the whole idea.
I always remember the first 2 games we played Feyenoord here, and the naivety of it all. We won 4-0. And Jeff Allen, the young winger, was absolutely sensational. We went out there and we didn't get a kick and lost 2-0. Yeah. So we saw how easy it was and how difficult it was, both against Feyenoord. But Jeff Allen did have a special game at home, and then was badly injured at Nottingham, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, listen, the game is, I keep telling people about my career, and I keep saying how lucky I was. And I think people think I'm being flippant, but I'm not, you know, because I've seen the other side of the game. And Jeff Allen, as John says, that night against Feyenoord, he tore, and this right back at Feyenoord was an international player. He's a good player, big, brutal man. And Jeff absolutely destroyed him on the night. And everybody thought, like, this is his breakthrough, he's going to go on from here. 10 days later, I think it was about 10 days later, they played down at Forest. And Peter Hindley was a bit of a beast, whacked him, and he never played again. You know, his career was finished. And the game is littered with stories like that, you know.
The interesting thing is his grandson, as you well know down there, Elliot Anderson, who's playing for Newcastle now, and he's going to be a player now. He's going to be a proper player. I was going to say, it comes from good stock, I think. It comes from good stock. I mean, that run, just picking out a couple of things before the final, we played away to Real Zaragoza on New Year's Day. Can you imagine that, playing in Europe in a competition on New Year's Day? I mean, it completely buggered my New Year's Eve up, I can tell you. It wasn't good at all.
It didn't do mine any good either.
You didn't have one, mate.
To be fair, Joe let anybody who wanted to stay up and have a drink. One or two of the Scots lads stayed up, but you know, I couldn't really celebrate it. And New Year's Day was unbelievable.
And they were possibly the most difficult side we played, Frank, in as much as I think it was away goals, the only time we had the away goals rule to qualify, because we lost 3-2 out there, scored twice.
Yeah, they were a good team. They had a forward line, it was called the Famous Five. Fortunately for us, and we were a bit fortunate all the way through, but fortunately for us, they were just on the wane a little bit, and they weren't as good as they used to be, but they were a formidable team, and we lost 3-2.
Yeah.
There, and really, we're looking to get away with that. And then was it 1-0, 2-1, 2-1 at home. So we sneaked through, you know. But God was on our side. I'm not religious, but God had to be on our side, because the night we played Victoria Setúbal at home, there was 6 inches of snow.
That's right there.
Now, had it been a normal league game, that game would have been off. No question about it. It would never have been played. But the UEFA official who was there insisted that it went ahead. Now, 3 of the Victoria Sechabal players were black players from
Never seen snow before.
From one of the Portuguese colonies who'd never seen snow before.
Mozambique or something.
And they came out. They had gloves on, they had tights on, they had hats on, and they literally just stood around shivering. I mean, I almost felt sorry for them.
I didn't.
We smashed them 5-1, and we went out there for the second leg, and it was 3-1, and they showed what a good
they
team
look
could be, you know.
quality side.
But the snow was definitely not.
The god that was on our side, by the way, is Joe Harvey. That's how we did it. Like Joe was a lucky Joe. He was super. He was super. Semi-final was quite riotous. Glasgow Rangers. Your mate Willie saved a penalty up there, and we got a no draw, which was a fabulous result with about 70,000 in, I think.
Yeah, incredible experience. I think probably the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of. 75,000 sellout. Battle of Britain, it was classed as, and Rangers were a very good team. You know, I was up against Willie Henderson, who he might be still in my back pocket. Come on, I'm only kidding. Really. He's a great lad, Willie. He's got involved with the First Cup club, hasn't he? You know,
very strongly. Very
met him a few times. Great lad. It was a terrific game. Willie saved a penalty, which was a big help, obviously. And then we came down here for the second leg, and the atmosphere was a bit intimidating right from the start. And then when the second goal went in with about 20 minutes to go, on the pitch it came like all these mad drunk Rangers supporters. And the referee stopped the game, and he took us off. And we've all run off, and as I'm running off, I get to the touchline, and Willie McFord turned around and he's going to go back. And I said, "Where are you going, Willie?" He said, I left my cap and my gloves in the back of the net. I said, "Fucking leave them there, I'll buy you another pair of them." And anyway, we sat in the dressing room for like a long time, 15, 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
And to be fair, the chairman of Rangers football club came in and said, "Doesn't matter what happens tonight, afterwards, whatever, we are forfeiting this game and you will go through," which I thought was big of a man.
It was the right gesture, wasn't it?
Anyway, we managed to get back out, and I've never been so frightened on a football pitch in my life. Played the last 20 minutes. I mean, you know, in those days there wasn't much room between the touchline and the pitch and the track and the supporters. And right round the pitch, it was ringed with police dogs. And I mean, like aggressive fucking Alsatians.
Oh, yes.
Nobody was volunteering to take the throw-in. But anyway, we managed to win the game 2-0. Now, there's a nice little end to the story for me. Like, I was single at the time, not involved with anybody really. And I'd arranged to meet this girlfriend down at Marlborough Crescent. Remember Marlborough Crescent, the old bus station? Like,
Aye.
I was going to meet her there off the bus, and then we were going to go to Grace Club. I used to like going to Grace Club. So I go down there in my car to pick her up, and I'm sitting there waiting for her, and I realise all the bloody Rangers, coaches, supporters, coaches are down there at Marlborough Crescent, and they're all walking past and running past my car, and I'm on the floor like, you know, but I managed to not see anybody.
Yeah. Did the girlfriend find you?
Yeah, she turned up, yeah.
She did, so it was a double. It was a double that night. The interesting thing for me, and I always took the mick out the boys when we played and we had the riot in the semi-final at St James's. I said, it was Scott and Sinclair's goals. It was 2 jocks from Newcastle who started the bloody riot with the jocks. They got the goals and caused absolute thinking mayhem. Yeah. I mean, I always remember we got to the final, and in the final, before the final took place, Újpest, people these days don't realise how good a team, Újpest, how good a team a Hungarian club side could be. But if you remember, Hungary had just been on the top of the world. They had Puskás and everything. They'd come to Wembley and beat England 6-3 at Wembley, which was the first time England had ever lost to foreign opponents at the Twin Towers. They then done them 7-1 in Budapest. Uzbek were the top team, but the Hungarian uprising killed everything off for them. But at that time, Shankly at Liverpool come out and said Newcastle's got no chance, Uzbek are as good as that. Jock Stein said the same at Celtic. And Don Revie's Leeds, who were champions that season, they were our champions that season in England, and only lost 2 games all season in the first division in England, had lost home and away to Uzbek before we were going to play them, and he said, this is the best side in Europe by a mile. Yeah. Newcastle's got no chance.
Good judge that Don Revie.
Aggregate score 6-2. Wasn't bad.
Unbelievable.
But mind, when I look back, Frank, we beat them by playing only half a game twice. First half, 0-0 at half time, then 3-0. Second leg, 2-0 down, and then 3-2 win.
Well, we're just softening them up, like
in the first half, right?
No, listen, the first, we knew how good a team they were. The first, I mean, we had a good defence at Newcastle. We were very strong defensively. We had a solid back four, 2 central midfield players, Tommy Gabe and Benny Arentoft, who might not have been the best on the ball, but were great athletes, great workers, and we were solid. And in that first half, that's what we set out to do, really, to try and stop them playing and getting any goals. And then after Bob scored, I mean, it amazed me.
Oh, no, right. It must have amazed him, mate.
It must have sickened them, because apparently they'd spent a month practicing how to stop Wyn Davies scoring. And Wyn never scored a goal in the final out of the 6, did he?
No, he didn't.
I mean, he did help a lot, he was a handful, but he never scored a goal.
No,
And Monk,
didn't.
who's never scored, comes up with 3. I mean, that's enough to slit the throat, really.
But it was terrific from our point of view. And when I look back on those days, Frank, and you were around during all this, which makes it quite unique, Joe Harvey built 3 Newcastle sides. He built the second division champions, which you were part of. He built the European Fairs Cup, obviously, and he built the FA Cup final 1974 side. So he built 3 separate sides, which takes some doing. Frank, like David Craig and like Bob Moncur, was part of all 3. But he had that ability, and while we smile, and you mentioned Frank, not the best tactician in the world, and that is the understatement of the evening. But what for me he was good at, he could tell horse flesh. He bought players well. And his man management was good.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good judge of players, and the other thing is just the big word you said, man management. That's what it's all about, you know. And people keep asking me what Cloughie's secret was. It wasn't a secret, he was just a great man manager.
Yes.
And anybody, any of you lads who have managed any business, any group of people, the success or otherwise of your job will be, how do you get the best out of the people who work for you? And Joe was very good at that.
Yeah.
He just became a little bit, what the word is really, I don't want to insult him, because I thought he was fantastic, and he was I ended up being a good friend of his. He got complacent. Complacency is the enemy of success.
And that can happen if you're wild in it.
I once watched it. I went to nowadays, you know, if you want to be a football manager these days, you've got to go to lectures, you've got to sit exams, you've got to get online, and you've got to do this, you've got to do PowerPoint presentations. It must be a bloody nightmare. But when I remember when I was sort of coming through, I went to one of these lectures, and the bloke was giving the lecture. It had nothing to do with football. And he was talking about Nokia. Remember Nokia, who brought out the first mobile phone and then died of death? Oh, yeah. And his whole thesis was that complacency killed Nokia off. They had so much success at the start of the first phones that they thought, oh, we cracked this one. And they just sat back and let everybody else overtake them. And I think Joe got a bit like that. When I first went as a 19-year-old in Newcastle, I was scared to death of Joe Harvey. He had this sergeant major image, because he'd been a sergeant major in the army.
Yeah.
He had this fearsome thing, and everybody was scared to death of him. But by the end, some of the players were taking the piss out of him, and he let them get away with it. Like the game in the Anglo-Italian Cup final in Florence is a classic example. Not a very important competition, but you won it, you know?
Yeah,
if you enter
absolutely.
a competition, it doesn't matter how important it is, you should try and win it. And we went to play Fiorentina, and I won't name names, but 3 of the players stayed out on the pitch all night. And Mr. Curfew and all that. And Joe just ignored it, wouldn't do anything about it. So Keith Birkinshaw, who was the coach, went on strike. He said, I'm not doing anything. Bollocks to you. So we're thinking, well, this should be good, like. so Joe comes in pre-match, and we're all sat there thinking, what are you going to say? And he said, listen, you lot, I've never lost a cup final in my life, so don't bloody start tonight.
And that was it.
That was his team talk.
Hey,
And
it worked. We won 2-1.
Yeah, we won the
2-1. It worked.
We won the game. I remember that night the competition was organised by this Italian agent, Gibbo Perinacci, one of the forerunners of the all-powerful agents. And he said to us before the game, he said, listen lads, if you win the game tonight, I'm going to take you out in Florence for a big meal. Like. So we win the game. He only takes us to the fucking Fiorentina canteen, steak and chips in a canteen.
But winners, winners, winners. Going right back to the start at Newcastle, Frank, and you'd had this lovely, lovely time at Cooktown winning the Amateur Cup. Shortly after you come to Newcastle, the career could have taken an awful different turn because you broke your leg against Liverpool reserves down there, was it? Yeah. How bad was that a setback in terms of whether you even played again, perhaps?
Absolutely. It was my first meeting with that wonderful gentleman of football, Tommy Smith.
Anfield Iron.
Now, I'm sure he didn't do it deliberately.
No.
No. I mean, listen, he probably meant to hurt me, but I'm sure he didn't want to break my leg. And I can't say one way or the other whether he did it, but he did. I never seen him coming. I was very naive in those days. And it was a double break, both bones. But I was lucky in a way, and a lot with both bones, it was a clean break. So there were no complications with your ankle or anything like that. And at the time, I was part-time. I was working in the biochemistry department at the Royal Victoria Infirmary.
Oh, yeah, well, yes.
There's still a plaque on the wall.
Saying, thank God Frank Talk left us. Yeah, I've seen it, yes.
And so, because I never really wanted to be a professional footballer. Like the Newcastle Chief Scout, Temple Lyle, used to come to my house every Sunday morning for breakfast. From me,
Well, that's your man's fault. You had a good breakfast.
my being 15 to being 18, trying to get me to sign like, and we couldn't get rid of him. And I actually signed for Sunderland as an amateur when I was 15, just to stop him coming. Because in those days, if you signed amateur for a pro club, then everybody else had to keep away from him, you know. And then the following year, I signed for Preston as an amateur, and I used to go down and play, train in the holidays with the players, just to keep these people away, you know. And I didn't really want to be a professional footballer. The maximum wage was still on then. Believe it or not, I'm quite old, really. And I'd seen too many players get an injury like mine and never play again and be finished. And I was quite, I'm going to say I was quite clever. I was a hard worker. And I wasn't one of these people who could sail through exams without working, but I used to graft at it, like. And I had an idea to go to university. I was going to get a degree in chemistry. That was my aim. What I was going to do with it, I had no idea, but that was my aim. And so I was playing part-time, then I was playing for Crewe. And then, in between leading up to the A-level results, A-level exams rather, I was picked to play for the England amateur team on a 3-game tour of Europe. And then immediately after that, I was picked to go to Israel with the England youth team to play 2 games in Israel, which was a fantastic honour for me, like. And my mother was a little bit where I said, I'll take my books, Ma, I'll take my books. I fucking never owned them, you know. Never looked at them, and I paid for it. And my A-level results weren't good enough to get me into university. So I was sat at home for a couple of months, really, not knowing what I was going to do. I was playing for Crook. I was quite happy. I was earning £4 a week ready in the back pocket, you know. Yeah. Like good old amateur football, that was there with the days. Which was a lot of money. And my mother got sick of me hanging around the house. Timber Lyle came back again and said, well, if we get you a job in the RWI and play part time and see how it goes. That's a good idea. I understand about that, which I did. And I really enjoyed working in the RWI. I worked with some lovely people who were all less qualified than me. I mean, the job was below my level of qualification, but I didn't worry about that one. And then, of course, I got that broken leg, and I didn't play for 11 months. Because in those days, treatment was very conservative. You won't believe this. I had to stay in bed for 6 weeks.
With a broken
Literally,
leg?
in bed. Not get up or anything. I was in a nursing home in Jetman.
Ah, right,
The
yes.
club was fantastic, I have to say, you know. They sent an ambulance down. I was in Liverpool hospital in Liverpool for 3 nights. And they sent an ambulance down to bring me back. I'm in this nursing home for 6 weeks. And then I had a full length plaster on crutches for another 18 weeks. So imagine by the time I got that off, like, I didn't have any muscle at all on my leg. So it was 11 months before I played again. 11 months. And I'll never forget the day I made my comeback. It was Newcastle A team. We used to have an A team, remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Played in the Northern Combination. They were only playing against my village team where I lived. And my 2 cousins both played. And I'd played with them for the village team the previous season, like, you know. And they were playing against me. And I can't remember how the game went, but I got through it. And that was the day Bedford won it in the FA Cup at Newcastle.
At Newcastle. They're the big non-league result.
We came back on the coach. Obviously, our game was early because that's it got dark. January. I've never forgotten the experience of walking through the dressing room and the atmosphere that was
after the match.
After the match. It really brought that home to me. Hey, you're a professional. I thought this matters, like, you know.
Yeah,
absolutely desolate. But anyway, so I was lucky because I've had no ill effects from it at all. It could have gone the other way.
The Bedford goalkeeper that night, by the way, was a lad called Jock Wallace, who managed Berwick Rangers and then Rangers. And just to add insult to injury, on a corner, he lost one of his contact lenses in the mud. And couldn't see the bloody ball, and we still couldn't beat him. But that was us at the time. If I can get on to what came out of all this, which is absolutely fabulous and a wonderful time in Newcastle United's history, and as a Newcastle fan and a guy following you at the time, special for me. And your relationship, for me, the best partnership there's ever been at fullback is Craig and Clark in Newcastle's 130 years, without a shadow of doubt. And then when you think about this, in our side that went and won the European trophy was built on a good defence, a good defence. And if you look at that, Bob Moncur in that defence and Willie McFall in goal, all of you were close friends, those 4 guys. What about the partnership with Craig? Because David Craig and Frank Clark are 2 names that go together like Laurel and Hardy. Not quite. Fish and chips.
Which one's Hardy? Well, no, like David and I became very good friends. I mean, I found it quite difficult when I first came to the club because I was 19, so I'd never been an apprentice or any of that, done any of that. Like, so people like David and Les O'Neill and Bob and Alan Suddick, I didn't know. They were all pals, but I didn't know them. Like, you know? Yeah. And the senior players at that time were people I didn't really want to get to know. People like, I can't even remember the names now. Like, you know, Liam Call Me Bill Toohey.
Oh yes.
Who was like the lovely bloke, but the worst professional I've ever met in my life. People like that were playing in the reserves, and I was playing with them. And I used to go home and think, what have I done here? A real Charlie Minton had got together the biggest bunch of toe rags that had ever been gathered in one dressing room, like, you know. And Joe was brought in
to clean
one of
them
the
out.
reasons was to clear them out.
Yeah.
But you can't. It's not easy to do that now. So it took them a while. So I was all a bit disillusioned with these lads in the reserves. But David and Alan Suddick, Bob, Les O'Neill, I got really friendly with them. I don't think that matters too much, really, about football. You know, there's a lot of rubbish talked about team spirit, I think. About how you all got to be pals and you all got to go out together and all that crap. I played with Wyn Davis, and I never got on with Wyn as a person. Him and I were chalk and cheese. I would never ever want to socialise with Wyn. But I tell you what, come Saturday afternoon, and I'm standing in the queue with the players waiting to go out and play the game, and Wyn was there, he would do it for me, son.
Yeah.
Because I knew that he would go out and he would put his head on the line to get a point or a win that would help me. Like. That's what team spirit is about. So what people do on the pitch that really matters, you know? And you don't have to be the best of friends off the pitch. You don't have to be.
But I mean, we did have a good defence in those days when it went Craig Clark, Moncur, in between, and Willie in goal, and that was a defence for a long time, really.
Yeah, and we had Ollie and we had John McNamee, who were different, but both brought a degree of quality as well. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to downplay their contribution. You know, very
early on, Frank, as well, in the second division championship side, we had the famous Anderson McGrath Eiley half-back line, which was a contradictory. This business about you don't have to be friends, that proves it, because that was a championship, second division championship winning half-back line, but I don't think Stan Anderson and James Eiley were the closest of mates.
No, they weren't. Listen, I don't think anybody was mates with Jim at that time. Jim was I became very friendly with him later on, but Jim was like a very prickly character, and you're right, him and Stan were at daggers drawn, so it was almost inevitable that either you would gravitate towards Stan or towards Jim. And I went just with Stan, because Stan was very good for me. When I first went there, Stan and Jimmy Greenhouse, who was the first team coach, were great for me as a young player. But no, they weren't the best of friends. And I know, well, I'm sure, I'm looking around, I don't think any of you are old enough to remember when John McGrath first came to Newcastle. Well, believe it or believe it not, John McGrath was a ball-playing centre-half.
Yeah.
Who never tackled. Honestly, when he first came from Bury, remember?
Yeah, I do remember.
So, we've got Anderson, who couldn't tackle a bag of chips. We've got McGrath, who never tackled. And we've got Eiley, who couldn't tackle either.
No.
And me and Craigie hit the back, which it suited us both, because David was a better player than me going forward, but he was also a very good defender.
He could defend, yes.
And defending was all about for me, like, you know. So it somehow worked, you know. The three of them were good enough to cover up there.
But McGrath was converted, wasn't he?
Well, McGrath.
He had people in the end, didn't he?
Well, McGrath went to Southampton and I think they fed him on raw meat down there. And he turned into an animal, really. But he was a great lad. I love John. Smashing lad.
He was a terrific guy. And after dinner speaker, when he finished and was a manager, he was something different, wasn't he? He was something different. But let's get back to the 2 goals you scored for Newcastle United, not the one. But the one I remember that sticks out, if I can set the scene, League Cup against Doncaster Rovers at the Park. Morris Setters, I think, was the Donny manager. It was the old Manchester United hard man, etc., etc. And we went with a 1-0 up, 2-0 up, 3-0 up. So the game's won. And suddenly Frank goes down, lashes the ball in the back of the net, and the whole place takes off. The whole crowd takes off. The team are chasing him around the pitch. The crowd's going berserk. And Setters is at his dugout and he's saying, "What the fuck's going on?" I mean, that's 5-0 and they're going berserk. Like, what's all that about? But it was about 2,356 games and your first goal. Or there's something vaguely. Well, listen, you know how fishes get bigger after you've caught them.
And you know what? If all the people who said to me, "I was there when you scored," had really been there, it would have been 75,000. The number of people who have come up and said, I was there that night, I'm sure. There's only about 16,000 there, wasn't there?
Aye, how do you remember it anyway?
Well, I remember.
You can embellish it a little bit if you
I
want.
remember being embarrassed after the game when Jimmy Rush, the director, came in with a bottle of champagne. He said, you'll have to go out and salute the crowd, they won't go home. I said, fuck off. You're trying to kill me off or what? But the end to it, one of the players for Doncaster that night was Terry Curran.
Oh yes, yes.
Subsequently came to Nottingham Forest.
Right.
When I was there, and I became quite friendly with him. He said to me one day, that goal, he said, none of the players could understand what was going on.
Oh.
Fifth goal and the crowd invading the pitch and the whole
It
place.
was a classic. It was. I mean, I remember because there's a picture at home, and I was flicking through the records the other day, and there's a picture of me afterwards presenting the next home game. You with a silver salver in recognition of the goal again. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Listen, all this crap about scoring all these goals, I've only scored 2 proper goals, and I've got the ball and a shield for both.
Yeah, we'll get on to you because you scored for Forest to go.
That is a classic story, that one.
We'll get on to that in the
waiting for that one, all right.
In the second half, yes, because it is down here. Just to bring you down to earth a little bit, 1974, I know that the cup final, for you in particular, and for all of us, and for me, was a huge anticlimax. But what I try to cling on to is the fact that in the run to Wembley, we got through every round away from home, because we were held home by teams like Scunthorpe and Hendon, for God's sake. But we got through every round away from home, particularly I remember West Brom away, which was a terrific display. Absolutely terrific display. And Forest, of course, was en route where the only time we won at home, the FA said, well, you haven't won at bloody home, you've got to play again because there was a riot. And we had to go down to Everton for 2 games at Goodison Park. So we'll get on to the final in a second, but the run to the final, winning away from home, I think Malcolm MacDonald scored in every round away from home as well. What's your recollections of the run?
Well, the Forest game really was, I get asked about it all the time, obviously, now that I'm down in Nottingham. Of course. But the Forest game was typical of the weakness of the Football Association in those days. We should have been kicked straight out of the cup, without hesitation. The FA should have kicked us straight out of the FA Cup. And that might, but it might just have stopped pitch invasions straight away. But the fact that they let that go is encouraged people to do it. And then to make Forest go to Everton once was bad enough.
Twice.
Then they made them go again after we'd drawn again was nonsense. Where's the fairness in that? Where's the fairness in that?
There isn't any, but I don't want fairness if it comes out of us.
The last part of the story, I don't know if they remember who scored Forest's first goal. Liam O'Kane.
All right.
And
yes.
Liam and I are bosom pals because he worked for me at Forest, you know.
Right.
Fullback, of course.
Yes.
And that was the only goal he ever scored. And it's wiped off because the game was declared void. So he keeps reminding me about that. He's really good at about that.
That's right. Monks is as well, because Monks scored in that goal, and that was wiped out, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, West Brom was
the performance,
probably our best performance of the season. We were fantastic. Jimmy Smith played that day, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He came on after a quarter of an hour. Hibby got injured. He come on. He ran the show, didn't he?
He was outstanding. It was probably Jimmy's best game the whole time he was with us.
I'm sure it was.
The semi-final was a great occasion. We were up against it with Burnley. I think we'd probably agree we were a little bit fortunate to get through, but it was wonderful. A wonderful occasion at the end of the game to see that amazing cup that was there with the supporters. Looking forward to Wembley. Wembley was a disaster.
Yeah, it was.
Listen, it's unlikely we'd have beaten Liverpool if our preparations had been 100%. But we didn't even turn up.
No.
And it didn't just happen that. We worked hard at that. From the date of the semi-final, we stopped playing as a team. We never won a game.
No, you're right.
If I'm wrong.
No.
Possibly we'll be Burnley in that other silly Texaco Cup.
We put kids out.
But we never won a game after the semi-final, and the preparation for the final was diabolical. Diabolical. You know.
Oh yeah. We went down there.
Again, I don't want to name names because some of them are friends of mine. We went down to Selsdon Park, which was the right thing to do, because it was a nightmare in Newcastle itself. You can imagine for the players, like, well, can you get me tickets? Let's get out of here, like, you know. But if you take professional footballers away for any period of time, you have to occupy their time.
Totally.
Because if you don't, they'll find something else to do to occupy their time, which you don't really want them to do. Like. And that's what happened down there. We never even had a training pitch. Correct me if I'm wrong.
On a slope?
Outside of the hotel, there was a green grass slope that sloped down like that. Great if you got one leg shorter than the other. But honestly, I know you're looking as though you don't, but I'm telling you, that's where we had to train.
For Wembley, yeah.
And Keith Birkinshaw, who was a coach, I love Keith, and he was a great coach. I don't know how much part he played in these plans, but he said to me before we left, he says, take your guitar down, and we'll have a Tuesday night, we'll have a night in the pub in South.
Yeah, just outside the hotel.
Just you know, fill the tank. Yeah, great, Keith, smash it. So I got to the pub, there was only 4 players there, and all the rest were you like the press.
And we all went down.
All the media, all the press lads who were down there, they all came. There were maybe with Craigie, Willie, Monk didn't, because Monk had found a couple that he thought, I don't know what he thought he'd get out of them, but he never saw them for the week. And 1 or 2 more, and the rest were up in town, like, you know, having a good time. And that carried on most of the week. And it showed in the way we played, you know. As I say, we probably wouldn't have beaten Liverpool anyway. I mean, they were a very, very good team. But we never played. And Joe didn't help. Joe picked the wrong team. I mean, I've been a manager, I shouldn't criticise managers for picking the wrong team. We could not believe that he left Stuart Barraclough out of the team.
That's right.
Now, Stuart wasn't Giazino or Garincha, anybody like that.
He was quick.
But he was quick. And if Liverpool had a weakness, it was Alec Lindsay, the left back, who was a wonderful footballer, but not very quick. No pace. So we're thinking, Barraclough caused him a few problems, like, you know. Okay, I didn't play, he left him out. Brought Jimmy in.
Brought Jinky, didn't he?
No, I love Jimmy Smith, terrific talent. And I had to play right back that day, if you remember. And
Yes, I do.
Thanks, Craigie. Steve Highway's on the left wing. Thanks for that, Craigie. I had to play right back, and Jimmy's not the easiest bloke to play behind. Like.
No. And he was wanting to play narrow, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, because
it's natural.
That's what he did, like, no?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we had a shot on
No, we didn't. We were lucky to get nil.
Massive disappointment.
But
I threw when I got back to the room and stayed in the hotel. My wife was down there. And I threw the medal across the room. She picked it up, which was silly of me, really. And then when we got back on the Monday, I don't know whether you remember, the reception we got from the crowd was absolutely fantastic. And I mean fantastic.
oh, I remember.
And
very well.
all those lads who'd been uptown all week, fucking crying, like, look at that wonderful reception. I said, well, you know, you think you let them down, like, you know? But the reception was unbelievable. I was just staggered by it.
Before we get on, in the second half, we'll talk about Cloughie, because that could take an extended license to talk about Cloughie, because the stories that must be there. Can we just wrap up the Newcastle United segment and talk about when you were handed a free transfer from Newcastle? As it turned out, with hindsight, the best thing that could happen to your playing career, but at the time, an absolute blow after being at Newcastle for so long and told you're on a free transfer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Massive. Came right out of the blue. In the January of that year, 74, 75 we're talking about, I'd been in and out of the team a little bit. I had 1 or 2 injuries. Alan Kennedy was coming through, and obviously Alan was always going to be a good player. I played quite a bit at left centre back, and I played did okay. And in the January, I got a call from a fellow called Wally Barnes. Anybody remember Wally Barnes? You probably won't. He used to play for Arsenal.
Oh,
And,
yes.
He was an agent, and he was acting. This is when the American Soccer League was just starting, the first one. Like.
Yeah.
And he said, would you like to come and play for San Jose Earthquakes? I'm thinking, fucking hell, Earthquakes. That's a bit of a name, that.
Bit savage, that, like.
But anyway, I fancied it, you know. We had one daughter who was only like 3, so there would be no upheaval.
No.
Mum wasn't working. I really fancied it, like, you know. So I went to see Joe. I said, Joe, look, I've had this call. I said, I don't really, if you're telling me I've got a future here, I'm quite happy to stay. I don't particularly want to go. But if I haven't, and I can see Alan coming through, I would fancy this one, you know. Oh, I said, well, we better go and see the chairman, Lord Westwood. So we go and see Lord Westwood, and I explained to him, and he said, you're going nowhere. You're staying at this football club. Your future is here, so you can forget about it. I'm okay with that?
Yep.
Lord,
Yep.
my Lord, one could. Fine, no problem. This was January. Back end of April, last game at home, I played in the game. We lost 2-1 at home to Birmingham City, and myself and Keith Birkinshaw, the first team coach, were sat in the dressing room, and with the last 2 there, as we always were after games, we were always sat there talking about the game, and Joe came in, and he said, I don't know how to tell you this, fellas. He said, we've all been sacked, all fucking 3 of us. He says, I've been moved upstairs, Berkey, you've been sacked, and Frank, you got a free transfer. That's how we were told, that's how we found out. I was absolutely devastated. So I'm driving home, and we just moved. We just moved into a new house in Whitley Bay, up in West Monkseaton somewhere. And I get home, and Pam, my wife, is fitting up these new curtains, like, you know. I said, I hope those fucking curtains are versatile. Because it looks like they'll be moving soon, like. And I was devastated. I mean, I was silly, really, naive, if you like. I should have known better. I somehow felt my whole career would be at Newcastle United, because I love the club, like, you know. I've been a supporter all my life. I had a fantastic time playing for them, and I just thought that, you know, I'd carry on, want to be a coach and whatever. And bosh, here it was, like, you know. I mean, I used to get nervous when we fucking crossed the Tyne Bridge going south, like, you know. And so that was it. And you and your colleagues, I remember you all saying, oh, don't worry, you'll have loads of clubs wanting to sign you with your pedigree, like. After 6 weeks, the only 2 I'd had any offers for at all were Doncaster Rovers, and that was only because Stan Anderson
yes.
and fucking Hartlepool. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, like, yeah, great, this should be great. Anyway, then I get a call from Cloughie. Hey now, Frank, I hear you're free, would you like to come play? Yeah, I'd like to talk to you, Brian. So I arranged to meet him at the Scotch Corner Hotel. And I set off, and I'm in my brand new Triumph Stag. Remember Triumph Stag? I thought I was fucking bee's knees in that. I set off in that, and it breaks down in the Tyne Tunnel. Honestly, it breaks down in the Tyne Tunnel. And those days, of course, mobile phones. I think, shit, what am I going to do? Somehow, I don't know how I did it. I got in touch with my wife, who rang the hotel and got a message to Brian. Said, you get, and how I got there, I don't know. But I got there about an hour and a half late, but he waited. And I'm going down there and I'm thinking, 450 games in Newcastle, I've won this, I've won that. I'll be looking for a big contract here, like, you know. So I walk in, and he said, right, before we start, I've got 2 things to say to you. First of all, I'm only signing you because we haven't got another left back in the club. And the other reason is, you're cheap. That was my idea. With a big fat contract.
Your idea, heaven.
Straight out of London.
But you did. We'll talk about that second half. We'll have a break for a quarter of an hour, kids. Put your hands together. Frank Clark, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Clark.